third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there, and way second down,
Welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. We have a lot to get into, so this is going to be kind of long-winded here for a little bit, I think. But we thought we were going to do an episode after the 4th of July weekend, July 3rd. That didn't happen, so we have a lot to catch up on. The Phillies swept the Cubs way back when, came home and lost the home series to the Nationals. They lost 2 games by 1 run after scoring 19 in the middle game, which was kind of a lock, I think, to happen. Then somehow went to Tampa Bay and swept the Rays in pretty much convincing fashion in a way. I mean, 3-1, 8-4, then 3-1 in extras. And Christian Pache put the world on his back and hit a pinch hit home run in the 9th inning, go ahead against the Marlins in game 1 of that series. And then the Phillies just, the offense especially, did not show up in the last 2, 5-3 and 7-3 losses. So as it stands today, Phillies are a half game out of the last wild card after holding it going into this past Saturday before the All-Star break. I mean, overall, it's pretty good. You know, June 2nd, 3rd, whatever that was, 7 games under 500. That's a 14-game flip in a month, exactly a month, which is pretty impressive. It's hard to be too mad about how they were playing. I think that last series against the Marlins, losing a home series against the Nationals, just a couple games there we felt like they could have had.
Yeah. Way back when, just thinking back to Chicago, Marsh had a good series. He kind of got back on track around that time. Yeah, the National Series, despite the 19-run game, it was kind of a dud. Yeah. They did catch their best pitchers, but also one of the games that arguably their best pitcher was pitching. I know they lost to Josiah Gray, who was an all-star, but Mackenzie Gore is really good stuff, and they scored 19 in his start. And then Trevor Williams had an 8 ERA, and they couldn't do anything. So the offense is just infuriating, and it seemed like people started to get down on them a bit. And then they played their best baseball of the year and swept Tampa. And it was basically in every facet of the game that they just outplayed the best record in the American League. From the pitching, Nola finally looked like Nola, or at least old Nola. We don't know what the real Nola looks like right now. But he looked good. Walker had his worst start in a month. And for once, the offense actually bailed the pitcher out. And yeah, the bullpen's been nails pretty much the last month. And then, I don't know, the Miami series is tough to me because I feel like they played well for the most part. Obviously, the runners in scoring position is still an issue. Yeah. But I think right now the biggest way to gauge where they're at is they played 2 good teams this week, and they outplayed the Rays by a long shot, I think. I think as far as the brand of baseball, it was much better. And then they were very similar to the Marlins, who now have the second best record in baseball, maybe, only behind the Braves.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
But that's, you take that with a grain of salt, because we know with the Marlins, they hang their hat on their pitching. So you look like you belong in the same field with them. The scores indicate that for the most part. But their offense isn't great other than hitting 1 million home runs off Aaron Nola. So
yeah, they got him pretty good on Sunday.
It's just you played good this week. You 4-2 road trip against 2 teams, especially when they road trip down to Florida. Especially just thinking back to the COVID year, that road trip to Florida just hangs in my head about you needed to win 2 games out of 9 to get in the playoffs, and you go 1-8. So, like, I'm not going to complain about a 4-2 road trip to Florida. But, of course, in Phillies fashion, the 2 losses are the most infuriating against the team that you can't really afford to lose to right now.
Yeah, I can't remember if we said this on here. I know we talked about it, but we were talking about this Florida road trip, and we are like, we'd be happy with 3-3, but like in a perfect world, you get swept by the Rays and sweep the Marlins, and kind of the opposite happened there. I mean, you take it either way, but just because of tiebreakers and trying to gain games in the wild card on them, it was a little frustrating not get one of those last 2 there.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, tiebreakers are the biggest factor because like a 1-2 series, you lose one game in the standings. Like,
Yeah,
oh
they're
well, it's
2-4.
July. Like, you can't really hunt them in the standings at this point. But like a 2-1 to bring the season series back to even with 4 games left would have been like huge as far as tiebreakers go, because that's how they kind of got in the playoffs last year. Not that it came down to that, but you knew you had that extra game over Milwaukee in your back pocket.
Yeah, and just kind of bringing that up, looking at these standings here. So they're 2-4 against the Marlins, which not winning one of those last 2 really hurts because that would have been 3-3. 4-3 against Arizona, that's done. So that's good because Arizona's fading a little bit. So if it gets down to the 3rd wild card spot, you're good there. You're 0-3 against the Giants. So you pretty much have to sweep them when they come to Philly later in the second half here. And then you have not played Milwaukee. And right now, look, the Padres are 6 back. They come to Philly this weekend. So that's
a huge
big
4-game series.
Yeah, to me, because they could bury the Padres this weekend. Like, just end it, and then the Padres start thinking about selling off some pieces, which we might get into in a minute. But yeah, just a lot of interesting stuff going on there with the standings and the tiebreakers. So that does hurt there a little bit. Also, you have a tiebreaker over the Reds. I don't know what's going to happen there.
They're winning that division solely because I need them to, but
yeah,
that's not important.
Right. So we kind of touched on this. The pitching has been good. Alvarado and Dominguez are both on the IL right now, though. So that's concerning because you're keeping Kimbrel in the 9th. Soto's going to get used a lot more now as the setup guy. Probably the sole setup guy now. You kind of went from 3 setup guys to 1 in the blink of an eye, which isn't ideal. Bilotti back up, was doing really good in AAA. I mean, the bullpen still feels fine. Like, outside of Covey, I don't think there's a terrible guy out there, but you pretty much lose in terms of like velocity and stuff, you pretty much lost your 2 best arms in the matter of a week.
Yeah, and they're both concerning for different reasons, I think. Obviously, with Alvarado, anytime it's the elbow, it's pretty concerning, especially like I know they took it really slow with him the first time, and he was good for a few weeks as far as health wise. Like, he wasn't the Alvarado we saw at the beginning of the season, but he's still very good. But like, it's just flaring up this quickly again. It doesn't kind of instill confidence in me that like it just makes me feel like it's bound to happen again later on when he comes back. And then Dominguez, the oblique, I feel like that's just something that's gonna nag, especially with how he is. Like, it took him a while to get back to his full Sir Anthony form last year after he was injured, and it's like I feel like it happened at a bad time because they kind of coincide with each other. And originally they said that he was only going to be on the IL for 15 days. They think that the 15 days would have been enough. And then all of a sudden it was, he's not going to be back until after the All-Star break.
Yeah, I guess if there's a bright side, it's that there was 4 days off in here for the All-Star break. So while 4 days isn't a lot, it's still 4 days that weren't games and obviously we saw just showed how close the wild card race is. So, any game you don't have to play without those guys is good. So yeah, that's helpful. Saturday is going to be interesting because it's a doubleheader, and now your bullpen is not what it was a week ago. So curious to see how that goes. I'm sure there's
speaking of the doubleheader, I love how like this is kind of a side note, not too important, but like I love how petty these teams are. Like Saturday, the 1:00 game against the Padres is the NL
Yeah.
championship ring giveaway. It's like, that's just hilarious.
You I didn't even realize that till you said that, because I saw the commercial for it and I was a little aggravated in a way, because I was like, why the hell are we still doing this in July, like dragging out
But
a
that's
pennant win?
but it's the Padres.
And then yeah, you just said like it's because Padres are there. Yeah, that's honestly really funny. And it's a Harper ring giveaway, which from them breaking his finger to him coming back and hitting the home run. Yeah, that's pretty perfect, honestly. That's a good one. So the offense has kind of been the downside of this team, which is crazy to think about. There's three guys in particular who need a big second half for this team to get going, and it's Schwarber, Turner, Harper. Harper hasn't homered since May? I think the end of May. He has 3 home runs on the year.
Like 38 games, maybe.
Yeah, it's something bad. Schwarber is still below 190 in batting average. He has just 2 home runs in his last 15 games, and his last 11 games he hasn't walked. I'm sorry, his last 7 games he hasn't walked, and he struck out 11 times. Turner is still in that 240-ish, 50-ish. He's at 247 right now. The power started to come back a little bit. He's up to 10 home runs. He's stolen 19 bases, which is pretty good. The defense has been hit or miss. There's a lot of times where you'd like him to get a single or double with a guy on. It's just not happening. And Harper overall, it's just everything's kind of just been like poked ground balls through the hole between first and second base. It feels like I know he's hurt and all that, but those 3 guys in the second half have to get going for this team to go anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And I think kind of with those 3 specifically, they're top 3 guys in the order. It's like, okay, well, if they're the 3 guys that are struggling, yeah, the offense isn't going to be great when those are your first 3 hitters getting the most at bats. Mm-hmm. I've heard this like just on like the radio and stuff. I'd like to see them just try Harper at leadoff. If you're not getting any power from him, but he's on base at 400, if his on base percentage is around like 380, 390, 400, it's like, yeah, just let him get on base. I mean, he's not a terrific base stealer, but he's aggressive on the bases, which I guess could harm you as much as it could help you. But like, it's not like they've been running the bases great anyway, so it would just be par for the course. But like, you need to create traffic and you need to create action in games, and that doesn't help when Schwarber's striking out to start the games, because it seems like his strikeout rate has gone through the roof, especially since the last half of June and June has ended. Turner's kind of the same way. It's like he's just when you think he's taking the next step forward, you get an 0 for 4 with 2 strikeout game from him. It's just like it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back with him. So I'd like to see them mix it up, even if you go Harper. I don't know. Castellanos has been so good, so you don't want to move him. But it seems like Turner's best stretch was when he was hitting cleanup. So maybe get him back there and kind of, if that's where he has to be for the rest of the year, then so be it. Like you take your medicine, and Castellanos has hit all over the lineup this year. So it seems like that's not as important to him. And I know everybody said, oh, they've won since Schwarber's in leadoff, and that's where he's most comfortable. Well, he's not doing anything. So It's like, why not try something different to get the offense going again?
Yeah, the Schwarber thing is interesting because I know Jack Fritz tweeted this, where it's like they're 30 games, around 30-ish games over 500 when he's in the leadoff spot, and then they're like 10 games under when he's not. I don't know how to explain that, because like he's not done much, but at the same time, it's somehow a formula for when they win, but the offense isn't doing good. So I don't know.
I'll explain it. They're 16 games over 500 or whatever it is when the pitching staff has a sub 1.5 ERA.
Yeah.
That's what it is. The pitching staff was insane for the month of June, and it just so happened that's when they moved Schwarber to the leadoff spot.
Yeah, I don't know what to do there, because you have these guys that, ideally Schwarber and Harper are like 3 or 4, 3 and 5, and they're both hitting 30 plus home runs on the season, and you're just not going to get that right now. I don't feel like, especially with Harper.
No, and it's like I'm not one of the Schwarber anti-leadoff spot. Like, it worked last year. It worked in the
Right.
playoffs. I get their logic with it could be 1-0 in the blink of an eye. I fully get that. But, like, the offense has been bad for a solid 2 weeks now, aside from 1 or 2 games. It's like, even if you just get guys going again in different spots and then you could move them back, it's like, it's not that, oh, Schwarber's horrible, we'll get him out of the leadoff spot. Like, the on-base percentage is fine. I'm not so much concerned with the average at this point. Like, we know what we're going to get average-wise, but it's like something just needs to be shaken up, I think, with how they've been. And they could come out with the same lineup for the first week and kind of let the All-Star break reset them, and maybe that's all it is. But I think if you wait too long with the offense being this stagnant, you're going to dig yourself a hole.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing to that is your 3 or 4 best hitters have been at the bottom of your lineup with Stott, Bohm, and then the combination of Marsh and Pache. And these guys are getting on base, and most of the time it's with 1 or 2 outs, and then Schwarber's up, and it's a strikeout. And then it's like a ground out or a fly out by Turner. And it's just like the bottom order guys are doing what they need to do. And there's not a lot of power in the bottom of that order. It's a lot of just contact guys, but they're getting on. And the problem is the Phillies aren't scoring because these guys are hitting singles or doubles or walking a little bit. And it's the guys at the top of it that are supposed to be driving them in, and they're not. And it's kind of been the dynamic, I guess, not a dynamic, but a problem for them. And maybe Harper leadoff helps that a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, just as you were saying that, I was just thinking about how, like, the lineup was constructed, and just on the surface, Schwarber and Turner have been, we'll say, like, problems as far as run producing, driving in runs, on base percentage. Really, I think Turner might be under 300. I know he was hovering around like the high 290 mark. His on base might be under 300.
Yeah, it's 299.
Harper's on base percentage is high. Castellanos is high. But, like, say those guys both get on, you're getting that with 2 outs. And then Real Muto had a good Miami series, kind of hitting in familiar grounds. But, like, since the cycle, he's been abysmal. Like, tough to watch. Like, borderline automatic jam shot, ground out, or strikeout. Like, it's been insanely tough. So that's been your 5 hitter. And then you're getting the Bohm Stott Marsh area of the lineup, and it's like you're doing that with 1 out or 2 outs already, and then, like you said, it's back to Schwarber, and it's like, yeah, the offense is going to be bad when it's constructed like that.
Yeah, I have a couple notes on Real Muto. One, I guess we'll see how he is after the All-Star break, because we saw it last year when he, got that Toronto series off. He came back and was on fire. So we'll see how the 4 days off, if it helps him, if it gets him going again like it did last year when he got a few days of rest. And then, the thing is with him, I know he makes a lot of money and he's a big name and he's an older guy, so he's respected, but he's not the 2019 and 2020 guy anymore. It's just he's a 32-year-old catcher. I think they need to acknowledge the fact that right now Stott and Bohm are better run producers than him, and he needs to be dropped to 7 or 8, where he's still, from a catching perspective, he's a productive offensive player, but not overall in the grand scheme of Major League Baseball. He's really not anymore. I think you just need to move him down where, when he gets those occasional home runs and doubles, which he'll still do, it's beneficial, but he's not the guy coming up with 2 outs or even 1 out. You just need to ball the outfield or some hard contact. And Stott and Bohm is just, they're going to give you that a lot more than he is right now.
Yeah, and even going, like you were saying, he is getting older, and he caught like
a lot
last year, and he's catching, like, he's on pace to like catch more this year, assuming a playoff run. Obviously, he caught basically every game in the playoffs.
I don't think Stubbs started a game. No.
So it's like, okay, that's 20 more games on top of it. And then you factor in how many innings he had compared to the other catchers in the regular season last year. And then Stubbs might have 15 starts this year, 15 to 20 starts. It's like, if you look at the second half, like, and if you plan on going on a playoff run. I get it. The offense hasn't been great, and JT gives you more than Stubbs does, just as threat level. But like, you have to take into account that you need your guys healthy for when it matters, and you have to count on the other $275 million in the lineup to get runs without, like, you can give your 30-year-old catcher a day off here and there.
Yeah, that's a good point, because if Turner was hitting 300, if Harper had 18 home runs, if Schwarber at least was hitting like 220 with 30 home runs, I do think Real Muto would be out of the lineup a lot more, but it's just they're pressing the issue a little too much because they are desperate to score runs, and it's kind of going to screw them long term if they don't figure it out starting this week, honestly.
When they press the issue and leave him in the lineup, he's not doing anything. So it's like, you're pressing the issue for what? For the same results. Like, let Stubbs get in, let him, because those guys that we were just talking about that have shown to be better run producers this year, they all move a spot up in the order then. And then Stubbs has shown he could drop a bunt single down. He can occasionally run into a pitch from a righty that could end up in the right field wall, like something like that. Like, you lose the threat of JT, and you definitely lose offense with Stubbs. But like, at the same time, I don't think it hurts your lineup as much as you think it does. And defensively, Stubbs calls a great game.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of the pitchers have lower ERAs with him than Real Muto. So maybe if you gave Nola Stubbs a couple more times, maybe his numbers go down a little bit. I don't know. But all right, to kind of close out this first half of this very long show, we're going to go back to this. Just look at the record, 48-41, half game out of the last wild card spot. What grade from the first half would you give the offense, the starting rotation, the bullpen, and then I guess an overall grade? And if you want to give any player shout out, or I guess diss shout out, anti shout out as well, like whatever you got for that.
Okay, I will start with the easiest grade to give. I think the bullpen, I'll say, I don't want to be too favorable because obviously early in the year wasn't perfect, but like,
the Rangers series.
The last like month and a half, I'll give them an A-. Like, they've been insane. They went 27 innings without a run, like 11 games. Like, they've been crazy when they really needed them to be, considering where the offense has been kind of struggling a bit, and the starters haven't necessarily, like, early in the year they were kind of bridging until the rotation fully got up to speed, whether it was Ranger or Wheeler getting into the swing of things. So I'll go A- for the bullpen. The starting rotation is tough because from Ranger and Walker have been very good.
Right. I'd give them like a B+, but the other guys are like,
I was thinking overall rotation, I'll probably go B-.
Yeah, that's
just
fair.
Because Nola's been, like, as far as Aaron Nola standards, he's been awful.
Yeah.
Wheeler had that good stretch, but he's kind of been shaky lately. So it's like, you're not getting what you expected out of your two top guys. Your 3 and 4 have been just as good as advertised, if not better, especially the last month. And then you have to factor in, we went through 10 bullpen games, which some of them were Matt Strahm, which were very good to start the season. And then Bailey Falter stunk. And then whatever the 3 Dylan Covey starts were they existed. And then Christopher Sanchez has been incredible for what you need from a fifth starter. So I think, especially lately, you could probably argue a B, maybe a B+, but I think overall, probably I feel B-.
That's fair.
And the offense, I don't know. The offense bothers me. So I'm gonna say for the sake of, I'm just gonna say a C, smack dab in the middle. Castellanos was obviously incredible. The bounce back was needed. I feel like we were all kind of on board with that, of him bouncing back, but it was desperately needed, and we got it. Shout out to him for playing center field in the All-Star game. That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But Yeah, like aside from him, I feel like the big money guys have been very underwhelming, but the young guys have been. I mean, after obviously Stock got better as the year went on last year, but like him hitting 300, I don't think we saw that kind of jump coming.
No.
So, Bohm's taken a little bit of a step forward, not as much as we hoped, but it's getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Marsh is kind of making me look good. I feel like the breakout's kind of there. He's still striking out way too much, I think, but the power numbers have been better. So that'll take me overall. I'll say a C plus B minus first half. B minus, especially after how it started, but I think overall it's not what we expected them to be from the off season, but from how it kind of started with under 500 and then 7 games under 500 again. I think to finish the first half 7 over, I think it's fine. You put yourself in position to do damage in the second half, especially with getting a lot of the tougher games out of the way. I feel like they played a pretty hard schedule, especially at first, and they kind of just treaded water. 2 breakout players, one kind of talked about it, or shout out players, Marsh a little bit. Talked about it. He had a pretty good first half, especially with what we expected. And I'll just say center field in general, because Pache's been much better than advertised. And the other one that I was completely wrong about because I had him as my most disappointing player going into the season, Kimbrel's been insane. Like that dude is nails. So shout out to Craig for proving me wrong. And hopefully that stays up in the second half, considering the other 2 guys are hurt right now.
Yeah, my grades are honestly pretty similar, so I'm not really going to get into them. Castellanos, I felt like he was going to bounce back at least a little bit. I think he's even kind of jumped my expectations. I thought maybe he'd be more in like the 280 range. I think he's still second or third in the NL in doubles, so he's been awesome. Taijuan Walker, I was really down on him in April. I was concerned about this contract and everything. He's been awesome. Just seeing him eat all those innings that he has and keep them in games has been fun to see. And honestly, they needed it with the way Wheeler and Nola have been. Nola, a lot of guys go off in their contract year. And we talked about this before the season. I was like, it could benefit the Phillies that it's his contract year because like you look at like what Aaron Judge did last year. I know that's a hitter versus pitcher, but there's a lot of guys who just go off in their contract year because they know they need to. And he's been the complete opposite. And to me, that's just sucked to see. I will say though, I'm kind of optimistic about the second half because your 2 best pitchers. Well, okay, I know, but like your 2 best pitchers have been pretty much as bad. I don't know if Nola's actually ever been this bad. So
no, this is as bad as I can remember him.
Yeah, and this is the worst Wheeler has been with the Phillies. So if we're looking at the back of baseball cards and all that fun stuff, it can't get much worse for those 2 guys, and I don't think it will be. With Harper, I know the injury. Will he start to hit for more power? Is this week or rest good for him? We'll see. Turner, the dude hits. Okay, this 247 just cannot last. I can't see it lasting. I think the fact he wasn't in the All-Star game maybe was a hookup call to him too. I don't see that one. I can't see him being this bad for this much longer. Schwarber, see, I don't know what Schwarber is because he was good and then he was really bad to the point where he got DFA'd from the team that took him 4th overall in the draft. And then he was really good again with other teams. So it's like, is he good? Is he not good? I don't know. I still don't think he's a 184 bat, and he's got to get out of left field. I think that would help a lot. If I don't know if you make Marsh the full-time left fielder, you make Pache the full-time center fielder. We'll do like a trade deadline preview next week, probably talk about that more, but I think that would help him a lot. Just get him off his feet and kind of maybe get him out of his head because I think he knows he's not good out there right now. So I think, like a B minus would kind of be my grade for the overall first half, just because there's a lot of good. And then at the same time, like your 5 highest paid players, Nola, Wheeler, Harper, Turner, and Schwarber have been like really bad. So
Mhm.
I like, to me, I don't know, like everyone else has been awesome. And then like the five guys, kind of like the 5-star power names on your team haven't been. So the second half is going to be interesting from that aspect.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You make a great point as far as it's been about as bad as it could be for the big names, and they're 7 games over 500. So
Yeah.
the supporting cast kind of held it down, and now it's time for the big dogs to step up.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we're going to move on